turn. Tim Alcoholic. It's been a while since I've been up here to share my story. You guys hear little tidbits about me, and you guys see me, talk to me. I'm all over the place. Intimidating, right? But growing up in the 80s was a really good time. It was a really good time when you could ride in the back of the truck and your dad had a shotgun in the back window hanging there, like a good old American patriot. And those were the days, My little cousin, we lived right next door to each other. My aunt and uncle, they had 3 kids. And it was a good time to be growing up in Northern California in the 80s. My little cousin had a paper route, and I could remember we would get on our bikes at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we would go help him with his paper route, and then we'd go egg and TP people's houses. It was just a really good time to be alive. When the family came over and we had these big old parties, we got to help clean up. And so, of course, we'd be tasting all the liquor that was left over in the cups after the party. And some of them had cigarette butts, it was a little harsh getting down, but we did it. And, it was just it was a shot in the dark of if you're gonna get cigarette butts or not. But, drinking was heavily encouraged and sobriety was frowned upon. My uncle was in the Navy, and when he got out of the Navy, everybody celebrated, and I could remember when he got home, they had a big party for him, and he was my father figure in my life. My dad wasn't there. My dad left when I was about 1.5 years old, and I didn't see him until I was 21. But my first stint with the law was I had a bright idea to steal a donut truck and take the cops on a chase through 5 different counties, and they did not find it funny. I found it absolutely hilarious, and
as funny as us.
They were pretty pissed off there wasn't any donuts in the truck, I'm sure. But that was my first stint with the law, my run-in with the law, and I didn't have a profound liking for alcohol at that point. I just smoked a little bit of weed and that was it. Alcohol really didn't come into my life till a couple years after that. And when I had a buddy of mine, he came from Tallahassee, Florida. He used to come visit his mom every summer. And he came the following summer, and I could remember drinking a little bit, and I threw up, and I really didn't like drinking until the next summer, and I met this girl, and she drank, when she was about 16 years old. I started drinking with her almost every day, and I can remember I woke up, passed out in my front yard. It was like 6:30 in the morning because the sprinklers came on and woke me up. So I was passed out, and that was one of the best nights of my life as a teenager. Shortly after that, though, I started to have some kids, or just before that, I found out I had got a girl pregnant and ended up having a kid, and she moved away. She, the smartest thing she did, she took my daughter and she moved away, and it was, I didn't have a job. I couldn't provide for her, her mom was a little bit older, and so, had a couple more kids right after that, with this guy I was with, and that didn't work out, because obviously, my drinking had progressed, and it was more important than anything else in my life. Somehow I seemed to keep a job. Up to this point, I've never been fired from a job. And when I was 22, I got my first DUI. I don't suggest blowing by a cop at about 130 miles an hour on the freeway. Although I probably could have outran him. I thought it would be wise to just pull over. So I did. And I got a DUI, and I went to DUI classes, and I learned a lot. in DUI classes. I learned a lot about the MAD program, you know. I had to do some community service, which is fun. I met a lot of great people, you know, doing a work project and community service, picking up trash on the side of the road. A lot of great people, you know. Found out where to get some good drugs from. And, you know, you would have thought getting a DUI would have kind of slowed me down a little bit. It did for about 5 or 6 months. You know, and once I got that certificate for passing that DUI class, right, went right back to normal. And by this time I had 4 kids, and it was, you know, when I had my oldest daughter, she kind of slowed me down a little bit. You know, I only drank when I was at home with her, or, you know, when I was working in the yard or whatever. She'd follow me around, and that's when I think my alcoholism really, I started to pay attention to what was going on in my life with my alcoholism. And soon after that, I had broken up with my wife at the time, and I really went downhill from there. I started getting more into my alcoholism and doing drugs, and it got to the point where, you know, I ended up in some trouble, and I went in front of this judge, and he said, you know, he told me he was tired of looking at me coming into this courtroom always in trouble, and he said, the next time you come back in here, he's all, that 7.5-year sentence is going to stick. He said, I want you to go to this program. So I went to the Salvation Army in Sacramento. And he said, you do this 6-month program. He's all, I'll suspend your sentence. And I said, okay. So I went to this program, and I completed the program, and I tried everything I learned in that program about my alcoholism, about myself, was something stuck, you know, where my brain was like, what are you doing with your life? You know, why do you keep going down this path? And, you know, I met a girl before I got out of that program, and you kind of see a pattern here. And, and I thought I found the one, you know, and
I recognize
that. Right after I got out of that program, she dumped me, and I was just devastated. I was devastated. I was so sad that I had to get a drink. But you know, that lasted for a good couple months, but it was right back to where it used to be. You know, it was worse than ever. And I had a friend of mine that I was running the streets with, and he had gotten sober, and he was going to meetings. You know, I called him up one day, and I asked him if he wanted to hang out, and he said, no. He's all, you're still drinking, are you? And I said, yeah. And he's like, yeah, no, I've been sober. He said, I want you to come to a meeting with me. And I met him over at this meeting, and I think that's when things really started to click for me, because I knew if he could get sober, that I could get sober, right? Because he was way off worse than I was, you know, and it just planted a seed for me. It planted a seed for me, man, and I really thought, like, man, I need to get sober in my life. I know I can do this, and I was staying sober, and this is back when MySpace was really big, you know, and I met this girl online, and she lived down here in Monrovia, and she had one of the, like, you could put music on there on her profile and the books you've read and this and that. Well, one of them was the Big Book. I said, oh, I know about that book. She said, oh, really? And that's what sparked the conversation between me and her. And she came up, picked me up, and we drove down here, and I stayed with her for a couple weeks, and ended up really not ever going home. You know, we were together for close to 10 years, and we got married, went through a bad separation, bad divorce, and I found it necessary. My sister called me up and said, hey, why don't you come out here to Utah and live with us for a little while? You know, because I was really upset, and I wanted to destroy some shit in my life. So I moved out there to Utah. Everything was going okay, you know, for about 6 months, and then I found it necessary to take a drink because of all the pain I was going through from the divorce, and I had my grandmother that passed away too, not long before that, right? So those two things that I was going through that I didn't talk to anybody about, wasn't letting anybody know what's going on with Timmy, you know. I was afraid. And I didn't know what else to do, and the opportunity came where I took a drink. You know, and it started out just drinking with the guys after work at the shop. Then it started out hiding the bottles in the closet, because I didn't want my sister to know I was drinking. And then it became okay, right? So then I started drinking every night. Then I smelled breath, I smelled smell alcohol on my boss's breath, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I started drinking every morning. It gradually got worse, it got right back to where it was. I was hanging out with my brother-in-law and his motorcycle club that he was hanging out with. And I knew it was only a matter of time before I was gonna start picking up some of that white powder on that bar top. You know, and Pappy had called me and threatened me. He's like, if you don't get your fucking ass back here, I'm gonna come get you. And I don't know if he was serious, but
No,
he sounded fucking serious.
He was serious.
You know, and 2 weeks, man, after that, it was New Year's Eve. And I took a couple people with me to the clubhouse over there for a New Year's Eve party. And I wanted to get them home safe, so I stayed sober that night. And I got them home safely. I went home. I didn't get home until about 2:30 in the morning. And I went to sleep on my sister's couch. I woke up the next morning. I went and got a 24-foot U-Haul, put both my Harleys in there and all my stuff. And I drove back here. The following day was a Wednesday. And I walked into this meeting and I took a newcomer chip, and I felt right at home. Felt right at home, you know. The weight had been lifted. And I knew it was where I was supposed to be. And this time around was different, right? I had 8.5 years before I took a drink again in Utah. And I just took 6 years on the first. And it was, you know, year number 4, I woke up to go to this morning meeting for my birthday. And I hear this truck running out my window. And I look out the window. I live in a 2-story condo. I look out the window and there's this 24-foot U-Haul sitting there with its running lights on. Nobody in it, nobody around. And it's just sitting there running. And I was like, man, that's God telling me right there I'm where I'm supposed to be. You know, at 4 years sober. It was weird. It was the weirdest thing that happened to me about in my sobriety. Something like that. But doing the work for me was, you know, before I was just littering, you know, I was just hanging out. Yeah, I had done my steps a couple times, but it wasn't thorough, you know. I wasn't always willing to do the work, and, you know, even at this point right now, like, I'm on my 8th step, you know, and I'm dragging my feet, to be honest with you. But the work I've done up until this point has been extremely thorough, you know, with my sponsor. And any chance that I try to get, like if somebody asked me to do something to be of service, you know what I mean? Like, I know that for me, no is not the answer, you know? I always try my best to be of service, you know? And life is just different these days. You know, my relationship with my kids are, you know, it's a little bit rocky right now because I'm moving to Tennessee in July. And, you know, they don't like the fact that I'm going to be further away. You know what I mean? But my oldest son, he doesn't really talk to me much. He's got a 9-year-old daughter, doesn't know I'm her grandpa, and he still has a resentment against me. You know, and I know that one day, it's going to be okay, you know, that it's going to work itself out. We'll be able to have the conversation like I had to have with my dad, you know, when I had to go down those resentments. You know, I had that resentment from the time I was 21 when I first met my dad, because eventually after so long, you know what I mean, I just kind of blanked him out of my mind until I met him when I was 21. And that was the day I met him and my grandmother and my sisters, my brothers. And it took a long time for me to work on that resentment. That was one of the worst resentments I ever had to walk through. It took me 2 times to actually forgive him. You know, I made my amends to my dad, and And then I started treating them like crap, and then, I'm like, you know, one time when I went down to his house in Vegas, I was like, I said, Dad, I gotta make another amends. And, he just kind of looked at me weird, right? Because he doesn't understand about how that works, you know? And I just started bawling. You know, I was crying. Here I am, a grown man, crying to my dad, you know? And what that was for me was that I was releasing all that resentment towards my father. You know, it was what I needed to do. You know, and I just told him, I said, I need to do this. I said, I've been treating you like shit. Even after I made my amends the first time, and I'm sorry. I won't do it no more. And it truly showed me, like that whole experience truly showed me what releasing that resentment was and what it looked like for me, you know, and helped me in the best way. I have the best relationship with my dad now, you know, like I can tell him about anything, you know, he's not like giving me side eye or looking at me funny, you know, it's just like, oh, okay, you know, he loves me for who I am, you know. Calls me up all the time asking me about woodworking questions and this and that, but, you know, like I said, my kids are, you know, they're great kids. You know what I mean? Like, they don't get in trouble with the law. They don't go down that path that I went down. I think you know, because I always told them the truth, you know, and they've seen how my life was, you know, and all the destruction I caused and the chaos. They don't want no part of it. You know, they're all really good kids, you know, and I got 2 adopted girls, you know, with my fiance now, and we got Sawyer. He's about to be 2 here on Friday. You know, that's insane. That kid is smart as a whip, man. You know, he can unlock any door in the house. He gets into everything, and the kid loves applesauce, strawberries, and Pop-Tarts, you know. Like, that's what he wants for breakfast. But, you know, I'm blessed, man. I'm absolutely blessed. We're about to have another kid too, coming up in July. And, you know, some people might think I'm crazy, but, you know, I'm gonna leave one heck of a legacy behind, I know that, that's for sure. So, they're all gonna get together and be like, yeah, Dad was absolutely nuts. I can only imagine the stories that are gonna be told after I'm gone. But, you know, at least they won't be able to, they don't have to see me drunk, passing out in the front yard, acting like a complete idiot, getting arrested, you know, because that's what my life looked like. You know, and because I accepted the fact that I cannot drink alcohol whatsoever, to drink is to die, you know, I'm a better person because of that, you know. So, thanks for letting me share.
Oh, yeah.